The superego. It starts off as an essential part of early childhood, but eventually it really begins to take control of us, and it creates this nagging voice in the back. You're so boring. Ground. No one's interested, man. Just shut up already. No one's even listening. You sound so weird. And you know nothing. You offer nothing. You're clueless. Oh, piss off, mate. Okay, Mr. Sensitive. That guy, eh? What a piece of work. I'll go. He's in here. I've got to take him around with me everywhere. So, to put it simply, the superego can be thought of as the internalized moral authority. It starts off as an external voice, but we later internalize it. So if we are going to go into psychoanalysis briefly, you can think of the id, the impulsive desires, impulsive energies coming through, kind of this chaotic energy coming through that needs to be harnessed and channeled. That's why children are very spontaneous and, they just throw their food and they're quite chaotic. But basically what this superego does is it starts to dictate the id. It starts to tell this energy what to do, the energy obviously being the child. And what happens is these two pressures basically create the ego. I don't want to go into that too much because this is really just about the superego, but I thought I'd add that in for a moment as it is important as we move on. So as we grow up in the world, we are really being bombarded by information. We are being guided or dictated depending on the voice. We have the voices of society, of our parents and our peers. And typically they are there initially to keep us safe. Your parents say, don't do this, don't do that, don't climb that high slide, don't play with knives, and there's a lot of don'ts. But that can start to change as the child gets a bit older. Initially, obviously, the child is allowed to throw its food, it's allowed to make a mess. But eventually we start to be told no. It moves just beyond our actions. It can move into our emotions. You start to be told, don't feel that way. You're not allowed to feel your anger. You're maybe not allowed to feel your sadness. You're not allowed to cry in public. That embarrasses the parent. So you get told off for being angry, you get told off for being sad, and you get told not to be angry by an angry parent. So obviously there's very conflicting information that the child feels, and it feels extremely powerless and overwhelmed. But another thing is we begin to be told what we can say and when, and what we can't say and when we can't say it. These external voices become internalized, and we unknowingly, unwittingly, unconsciously end up dictating ourselves. It can be thought of as a lens, as a lens through which we begin to perceive the world. Because what is internalized, we can expel, we can project. So we start to voice our own superego, the voice that we've learned, on what is right and wrong for other people to do based on our learned experience. And what happens is this superego starts to shape parts of our personality. And there can be certain frames of reference or certain parts of personality that we can act out of consistently. We would have learned these different types of actions and way to be with our parents and the world based on our experience whilst we was young. This can be thought of as a mask, a persona to put on, or it can be thought of as something called subpersonalities, which basically means these different types of personalities make up the totality of our personality. But these experiences, as I mentioned, they're learnt whilst we are young. And what keeps us within this kind of fixed, rigid sort of structure is the superego. Because as we start to push, as we start to resist that which we've been told to be, we start to feel anxiety, we start to feel sad or angry or shameful or guilty. And it evokes a lot of emotions within us, but the two primary things are really that shame and guilt. And the reason we feel that shame and guilt is because if we wasn't behaving correctly whilst we was young, we was told off. We was made to feel bad, we was shamed, and we was made to feel guilty for our actions. So as we begin to try and be more authentic in life, the internal voice begins to try and regulate us. It kind of puts the brakes on, it flies a red flag, this isn't right, this isn't good, you should not be this way, you should not be authentic, you should not be yourself, you're going to get told off. Because that's basically what happens. There is a learnt experience, there is that child part of yourself which has learned not to be authentic, because to be authentic means to be wrong. And you has learnt to portray yourself in order to be how your parents or society or your peers told you to be. So that's where the superego really comes in. You're kind of trying to break out of this shell, and the superego limits you. It crushes you in a way. So people with a very strong superego, they do feel crushed, they feel restricted, they feel suffocated by themselves. And that's why. There's a part of you which desires to be real, it desires to be authentic. You desire to do the things you really feel are right in life, that you love, that you feel compelled to do. And then there's that part of you that judges you. And on top of that, perhaps your friends or your family judge you, and it really cements that voice further. But if we was to take a good boy or a good girl, so we was to take a learned experience, a learned way of being, one of them sub-personalities that I mentioned. Some people, they really feel they have to be good all the time. So we'll just stick with being a good boy. Because there was a time that I was once a good boy. So we'll take this experience for an example. And what happens is, as we go into later relationships in life, we never put our needs first, or we never put our needs equal to the other. The other's needs are always more important than our own. We don't really have much will, so we're always waiting for the other person to tell us what to do. We're always good, we're always giving, we're always caring, and we're always available. The reason being, obviously, we're always available because their needs are more important, so you can drop anything at an instant for the other person. And we exist only in as far as we can help that other person. So you don't really have any sense of your own self or autonomy or independence. It's really what that other person, how that other person meets you, and how you are in relationship to that. What do you want? Where do you want to go? It's kind of like that. So as I mentioned, we've become great at helping others, but terrible at helping ourselves. Perhaps we don't even know what we need or what we want, because we've completely lost contact with it, because we are so enmeshed or immersed in the other person. And another effect to this is, because we're unconscious to our own needs, there could be a lot of repressed sadness, a lot of repressed anger, and these feelings get pushed down. They get pushed into our unconscious because we're not allowed to have them. That superego prevents us from breaking out of that shell of being a good boy or a good girl. And what this can do is it can keep us in patterns. We can find we can find particular relationships, or we can find ourselves in particular patterns within the same relationship where you both take up a specific role. Your role is to always be helping, your role is to always be good, and maybe their role is to be the more masculine energy of let's do this, let's do that, and to really kind of push and roll things forward. As you are the more feminine, receptive, which is like, okay, we'll do this. And when I talk about masculine and feminine, I'm not talking about gender here. As I said, this part of myself is a more feminine trait. It's the receptive. It's nothing to do with gender. A newer phenomenon that children have to deal with now is the superego of the internet. See, if you're around my age, 24, then you'll be aware that I suppose there are certain pressures that the internet puts on you. But we didn't really actually grow up with the internet. It was kind of being made and then kind of growing, but it was nowhere near as sophisticated as it is now. But for these children growing up now, I'm really concerned, because it's easy to create a false self on social media. And also social media, it has its rules. It's all about having the most likes, having the most comments. And I think that it can become quite degrading. People begin to betray themselves, betray their authentic selves in order to receive these likes. And what really starts to happen is there becomes this idea of perfection. You know, people put their persona, they put that thing that they wish they was on social media, and you never get to see their other side. So there's always that hidden shadow. But obviously the way the superego is impacting and affecting here is this idea of perfection, of whatever you desire to be, this ideal object gets internalized in your mind, and you begin to need to be like that. So it's not about how you feel you need to be, it's about how you expect yourself to be or how you see others as. And then what happens is you start to mold yourself into something which you're not. Of course, you can work on your figure and you can do things like that and you can aspire to be these things. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But what's wrong here is when you're not being true to yourself, you're obsessed with likes and you only feel like you exist, you only feel good, and you're only feeling this goodness when you're getting likes, you're getting DMs and you're getting those things. Very short-term satisfaction, of course. So there becomes this mindset, unconscious mindset, of course, that I'm only worth something when I'm getting attention. And I only get attention when I'm this particular way. So you can really see the superego here is saying you should be like this, you need to be like this, if you're not like this, you're worth nothing. So it's easy for this voice to really just begin to control and dictate. But not all is lost, you can relax, there is good news, and the good news is that you can overcome this superego. So there's really a few different levels and layers to this. First, we have to catch the superego, we have to catch that initial moment it comes in. Whether that's first an emotion before the voice comes in, or whether it is the moment that you just hear the voice. Once you've caught it, you need to give space. You need to allow the energy to dissipate for a moment. So you need to be conscious and aware, you need to be in your body. It isn't really that helpful if you're in your mind because, you shouldn't really try to defeat something on its same level. So you should come into your body. That gives you some space from your mind. You focus on your feelings, your emotions, and just be with it. And allow it to dissipate, allow it to fade. And then you disidentify. So let's go into this in a bit more detail. So what will happen is a situation will happen. Maybe you're at work and perhaps you want to be authentic. You want to be yourself. Maybe you say a funny joke, or maybe you talk about your weekend and you talk about that which you enjoy. Maybe some people laugh at you. Maybe someone thinks that what you're saying is outrageous. Maybe they're saying you couldn't be this thing that you wanted to. They're trying to crush your spirit. And this gets you down. It reminds you of your parents, what they used to say. So really you've got an external superego voice there. And what that will do is that will trigger your own internalized superego, which will kind of be like, yeah, maybe they're right. Yeah, maybe I couldn't be that. Yeah, who am I kidding? I could never be this. Yeah, I am boring, I am trash, yeah, they're right. Maybe I am just a loser. And the voice comes in. So what happens is you want to feel the emotion. Maybe you feel like a shock or an anger or something. You feel an emotion. And before that superego comes in, or as the superego comes in, just listen for it. Okay, what is my voice saying, Oh, I'm such a loser. So you're putting yourself down. Okay, I'm such a loser. Don't give it the power. Because what will happen is you have like a feedback within your body. You'll be like, oh, I'm a loser, oh, I feel sad, I'm a loser, I feel sad, you sink yourself down, you sink your own ship. Catch it, allow your body to feel the emotion, hear the thought. What is it? It's just a thought in your mind. It's a learned experience. And if you didn't know it before, now you do. It's a learned experience. It's a learned voice. It's not even your own voice. You've just been told something and part of the psyche has embedded it. It had a purpose once, it no longer does. Catch it, feel it, allow that energy to fade. And once it begins to fade, once you give yourself that space, you can then kind of see it for what it is. At first, maybe you're quite attached to it. Oh, I'm a loser. And then at the end, it's like, all you hear is, oh, I'm a loser. Oh, look, the voice is trying to get me again. The voice is trying to get me. I'm not this voice. And yeah, what that means is you recognize yourself as not that. That's what I mean by being disidentified. If you was identified with it, I'm a loser. I'm this superego voice. I'm this, whatever this voice is telling me to be, I am that. So you are being dictated and you identify with the object that the voice is creating, the object of the loser. But if you disidentify, if you see it for what it is, then you're not a loser. You're just yourself, you're as being authentic, and it gives you the opportunity to respond to this person how you want. Oh, maybe they're putting me down. And instead of being like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm a loser, I'm never gonna blah blah blah, I'll be like, well, that's your own opinion, mate. I don't feel that way. I feel like I can do whatever I want in this world. Or however you want to respond, you know? Maybe you just keep your mouth shut and maybe they're not worth talking to anymore. Don't forget to like, subscribe, press that notification bell, and comment down below. Let me know what your experience is of the Superego. Peace.